Welcome to the Two Unlikely Christians podcast. I am comedian Pat McCool, coming to you from the deep, piney woods of Mississippi, now across the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to London, England. We find our co-host, esteemed psychotherapist and addiction specialist in London, England, just back from a trip across the English Channel, where he's been out spreading his brilliance around the continent of Europe. Welcome back in, Richard Turrell. The boy is back in town. The boy is back in town. Little Thin Lizzy for you to welcome you back.
Hello, Patrick. Thank you. Nice to be back. Nice to see you.
I'm not sure you enjoyed my Thin Lizzy.
It was okay. Like, it was okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not often lost for words, but that was
little Irish band. More people that your forefathers oppressed. Where I came from,
Yeah. Well, I went to Dublin like years ago now, like 10 years ago, and there was a museum dedicated to Irish history, and I have to say it was very different to the history that they teach us in English schools. It covered some of the events in Ireland, which they definitely don't teach us in the history books in the UK, and it was certainly eye-opening to why the Irish aren't always super fond of the English. It's quite shocking actually. Definitely a bit of is that like colonial guilt? I suppose it probably is.
Well, I hold no grudges. I'm here basically because somebody ran out of potatoes. I went searching for the royal blood. No, it was somebody ran out of potatoes and then just made it over here. But we all do our history, to what kind of fits. You ever watch an American war movie?
If you
ever watch an American war movie from World War II, you won't see a lot of British.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, the Brits were there too. Forget the fact that they had been getting bombed and fighting this war for several years. Maybe a guy runs up, and has a cup of tea in his hand. But other than that, we like our history our own way. But speaking of history, you have just come back from Belgium, and I'm excited to hear about your trip. You said you had some spiritual experiences. Oh, and speaking of countries are in stereotypes, for all of our listeners, when this is to paraphrase Richard's message to me that he was going to be out for a week or two, it went something like this: "Hey mate, we're going to have to miss this week. I'm going to Belgium, which is a small country in Europe." Well, slap mean. Wow, Belgium! I thought that was down in the Congo, man.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting bit of history there, right? But which we don't need to get into now. Well, that would be a very different podcast. But I didn't know. I know more Americans don't have passports than do. If I believe that's still the case. I have been asked by American people questions such as, "Do you still have a lot of castles in your country? Is England, is that the same place that Amsterdam is?" These, no disrespect to the people that ask these questions. I appreciate, it's America, it's a different, there's reasons why. But I just needed to make sure. I wanted you to understand what I was saying. Like that, I wasn't saying I'd come down with a horrible illness or something. I didn't know if you know what the word Belgium meant. So.
It's a fair assumption. I think I think we'd both be amazed at the lack of knowledge that people have in America about the world, and probably a lot couldn't find Belgium on a map. I, on the other hand, lived in Germany, and if you haven't noticed, it's like borders Belgium. So
You're aware.
I'm a bit of aware. You would think America probably consumes more French fries than any country in the world. French fries were originated in Belgium. Did you know that?
I did. There's a museum in Bruges, which is where I went, which we'll talk about. But there's a museum of French fries, referred to as Fritz over there, Fritz. So there is a Fritz museum where you can go.
Sorry.
That's all right, come on.
Yeah. What do you call them in the UK? Don't you call them like crispers or something like that?
No, French fries, man.
See, so we all
Yeah,
messed
French
up on
fries.
on
But we have chips as well. So for you, chips are like potato chips in a, like in a plastic bag, like which will be cheese flavour or whatever. But for us, chips are like big, fat, chunky. I think you
right.
call them home fries. So like big, fat, chunky
There we
chips,
go. There we go with the
like
fish and chips.
fish and chips.
Yeah,
Exactly that, man.
yeah. I think I got that from. I watched a movie. It was like a time machine with Malcolm McDowell. What's McDowell? Was it Malcolm McDowell, the great actor? He was
Um,
in. He was in Clockwork Orange.
I've seen it. I'm not sure.
Anyway,
It's much more
anyway,
your sort
he
of.
ends up in a time machine, comes to America, and he gets these French fries, and he says they're like. He said they're like potato crisp, but something. So I thought you might have called them crisp. But anyway, yeah, Belgium. I know where Belgium is, but you are safe in your assumption that a lot of people wouldn't. And you know, two of the greatest military battles and victories in British and American history were in Belgium. One, that's where you guys finally got rid of that pesky midget Napoleon at Waterloo. That was in Belgium. And then the Battle of the Bulge in World War II was in the Ardennes forest in Belgium. And so a little shared history there. But anyway, enough of that. I'm excited to hear about your trip. So why don't you just get started and tell us? So you said you had some spiritual experiences and some other
Yeah,
experiences. Just
yeah,
let us know.
100%. Yeah, so we went to Bruges, which is like a small medieval city. It's about an hour on the train. I believe it's about 80 kilometers from the capital, which is Brussels. And so my wife and I, we got the Eurostar, which is the train that runs under the English Channel. We got the train from London to Brussels. It takes about 2 hours, which is pretty cool. And then we got another train for an hour down to Bruges. Is this incredible medieval city? You're right, Pat. You look like you got something you want to say.
I just one question. I did not want to interrupt you. You went across the channel. I thought it was called like the Channel, and I thought it went to France. You're saying it goes to Belgium? So I
Yes.
I really hear him everywhere. Well,
I thought it was
bring
called the
me.
Channel, man. What are you talking about, man? So
I
it's
thought there
called.
was a tunnel that they built from England to
There
France.
is.
This was a
There
couple
is. Let
decades
me.
ago. I
It's
thought
all
they
right. Let
called it
me.
the tunnel.
Let me clarify. Let me clarify. So the nickname for the Channel Tunnel is the Channel. Yeah. So it
Right,
removes a couple of syllables. Yeah. Just makes it a little more palatable on the tongue.
right.
And
We do
that
that in the
runs.
South.
And that runs. I know. And that runs underneath the English Channel. It's about 50, like 35 miles, 50 kilometres long. This tunnel,
Right.
and then you can get a train through the channel or the Channel Tunnel, which, yes, it does emerge in France, but because, as you so rightly say, a lot of European countries they tend to run into each other, such as Germany and Belgium. The train then continues and goes to a variety of locations, and one of the big kind of hubs that it runs into is Brussels. So you kind of you come out at a little place called Calais in France, and then you essentially kind of chuck a left and head on up to Belgium. And that's what we did. So we went up there and then headed to Bruges. Bruges is this like amazing medieval city, Pat, right? And it's like kind of a bit of a fairy tale city. So it's surrounded by this moat, like a big kind of circular river. It's kind of egg shaped, but then within it, there's lots of kind of like castles and towers, and it's incredibly beautiful. But many churches, right? So there's many churches there, and they're all. If you get a chance to go over there, they're all free to go into, which is pretty awesome, right? So even though many of them are like kind of museums rather than active churches, right? But they're all free to go into. And my wife and I, we visited two in particular, which left a big impression on us. So I thought that you and I could have a little bit of a chat about that today.
By all means, tell us about it. And Belgium, another interesting fact about Belgium, there are more castles in Belgium than any country in the world, from what I understand, or from what
I
I've
did not
read.
know that, Pat.
And for a small, don't blurt that out at a party without Googling it, but that's what I have read. So it must be a pretty enchanting place. But so just tell us about the experience. So you're in Bruce,
Bruges.
beautiful, enchanted city, and you go into these. I am just amazed by these in England and in Britain and these churches, these magnificent cathedrals. How these things were built? What, hundreds of years ago? Some 4, 5, 6, 700.
Yeah, so I've Googled, I don't know the history kind of off by heart, but I'm going to talk about the history a little bit. I've looked it up, and then I'll tell you about the experience that I had there. Right? So it's a basilica, as they say, which means church. So there was a chapel there originally in 1150, and then
Wow.
then they built this church over it. Right, so we're talking this sort of spans back like 900 years plus, and then. So they built this place, and the reason it's called the Church of the Holy Blood, right, is because they have a relic there, right, which is said to be a piece of a cloth which was used to wipe Jesus' face as he walked with his cross up the hill to Calvary. So as he, following his like scourging and beating and general degradation, the crown of thorns upon his head, yeah. He was walking up the hill and struggling and falling and all that stuff, part of the story that we know. So that so the story goes is that a woman from the crowd rushed forward to wipe his face of blood and sweat and tears, and I imagine, and that a piece of this cloth which contains Christ himself's blood is then stored in this kind of fairly ornate silver like tube, yeah, and then is kept inside a silver tabernacle, right, on this altar, right. So this is a place of like it's a real place of pilgrimage. A lot of Spanish in particular would travel there to revere and worship like this in this place, right. So, and I don't know, I don't want to be controversial, but I just sort of talking about like my own views, right. Like, I'm not sure when it comes to relics and the worship of relics and items. I'm not so sure. Yeah, like I'm not so sure, right? But that's that's a broader conversation.
Yeah,
But I
I'm
went.
with you. I don't disbelieve it, but I don't just jump on and go, you know, I believe it.
This is as
I'm 100.
advertised. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100% right. But I'll tell you what, Pat, the experience I had, we went to this place, very, very beautiful, a lot of history there, right? Very like quite ornate, um, and
Wait, what you said? What was the last word you said?
ornate,
Ornate.
yeah. So, and then there's like the kind of the main altar where they have they obviously do the services and stuff like that. But then to the side in this other chapel, there is another altar with this silver tabernacle upon it, and then within when you open the doors to the tabernacle, the relic rests within there, right? And I'm someone, Pat, like I can find it, and we've spoke about this stuff before, and it, I'm someone that can find it challenging to connect, to really sit down and in prayer or meditation, kind of really, really feel that kind of deep sense of peace. That peace that surpasses all understanding. That connection, like have that kind of internal dialogue with the Holy Spirit. That isn't something that's not a daily experience for me. Yeah, but I sat in this chair. There was a row of chairs in front of this altar, and I sat in this chair, right? And there's a lot of tourists in there, so they're like coming and going. Not everyone that goes in there is like a Christian,
Spiritual.
that
A lot of them
says,
just looking at the, yeah.
yeah, it's a tourist, it's a place that people go to, it's just like for a historical rather than like a spiritual kind of experience, I guess. And I'm sat there, and there's these people coming and going, and I'm surrounded by it, right? But I just felt this peace, right? Just this, my eyes are kind of wet, like thinking about it, yeah. But like, I just felt this peace, man. Just this deep sense of peace and love come over me, right? Like, and I sat really still, and I felt, like I was kind of in a place where I could, I was having that kind of dialogue. Yeah, and then actually I had quite a strong sense of need to repent. Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff I've done in my life that, whilst I know how loved I am, I'm not sure that on a really deep and felt level I've repented for yet. Yes, I'm relatively new in the faith, right? And but yeah, so I got that. I had this kind of sense of that, but a deep feeling of like love at the same time, which of course is, it's really where we started with this podcast, right? It's the grace, like we have much to repent for, but but we're loved, you know, not even regardless of that, like we're loved because of that, right? And so I felt this deep abiding sense of connection, right? And I could have just sat there for hours, right? Like I felt like I could have just sat there for hours, like peace, in a place of like calm, not feeling like I needed to go anywhere, do anything, check my phone, see what's happening with this, see what's happening with that, all the things in my life. And I say it's ironically like busy and important life, like yeah, and I just and it struck me, right. I thought, is it? And I don't know the answer to this question. In some ways, it's largely irrelevant, right? But I thought, is what I'm feeling because truly I'm sat in the presence of a piece of cloth that was used to wipe Jesus' face as he walked up to pay the price for our sins, right? Or is it because this spot in which I'm sat, probably millions of people have come, to revere him, to worship him, to honour him, right, and to honour the sacrifice that was made. And like I say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll tell you, like when you have like, we spoke about it many times, the way that you responded to that altar call, the thing that happened to me in church, like listening to that, pastor preach on the verse about, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened. Yeah. That like undeniable experience. Yeah. And that's what I had there. Like I had an undeniable experience. Something came over me, which was like, impossible to deny, really. You know, um, so yeah, that was what I wanted to. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share about. Talk
I
about.
kind of I got chills when you mentioned the part about where you were sitting in the place because you never really think of that. You think you're in this tourist place, but I didn't really realize that how many souls sat in that chair in that particular place over hundreds of years. And I'm getting chills I don't know why it didn't make any sense, but when you said the second part about when you sat there and all of the people and all of the hurt, all of the people that have sat there all throughout the years, man, that's you just don't really have an answer for it. But you felt this deep feeling of the presence of God. Is that what it was?
Mm,
Or the you
yeah,
you were feeling the need for repentance, but you also felt the love. But that
yeah,
particular place just kind of had you there, huh?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. It's remarkable. It's a really remarkable experience. Yeah.
Were you praying, or you just sat down and you just started feeling that at that location?
Well, I was praying, I was feeling, I was, conversing inside, like, I mean, all of that, it was prayerful. It was a prayerful space that I was sat in, a prayerful space that I was in, kind of internally. Yeah, yeah.
So
It was,
it was just the location. Once you walked in and you sat down, you felt that.
yeah, well, I walked in and, I mean, look, Pat, I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I can walk into a beautiful church and appreciate the beauty, right? But I'm not someone that's going to kind of walk around and read all the little signs on the wall and, understand that in 1857 this guy did that and then in 19, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not me, like maybe it's the ADHD, I don't know, but it's like, I walk in, I look at it, great, it's really lovely, nice, like, da 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 da. Yeah, that's kind of it.
You
Yeah.
weren't thinking that it was what
No,
you weren't thinking that
but
when you said that. You just sat down and then later you
I,
went back and go, why, you
yeah,
tried to
no, no, no.
reconcile why you felt that.
So I'm looking at this church, and I'm just in my usual like, yeah, this is nice, but it's kind of like, not having like this kind of huge impact. But I got to the tabernacle where this relic is stored, And it's just, something to sit, like, sit down, just sit for a while, you know, just sit for a while. And, yeah, and then that was the experience that I had, sat, what, 8, 10 feet from, this piece of cloth, which apparently contains his blood. And like I say, whether it does or it doesn't, largely
Something
irrelevant.
happened.
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
largely
something
irrelevant.
happened. Yeah, whether it was that you were sitting in that spot, whether the Lord was just speaking to you at that time, or whether there was something next that's amazing, man.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
amazing.
And then other things, in Bruges. So there's another church called the Church of Our Lady. Um, and then my wife and I visited there, and there was this incredible piece of artwork, Pat. It's a sculpture. It's called The Road to Calvary, and it it runs kind of like in a horseshoe shape, and it has, if I'm correct, 12 scenes of the walk. So it starts with Pilate washing his hands on his throne with Jesus in front of him, yeah, and it ends with him being placed in the tomb, right? But it's this sculpture of these scenes as he walks. And then my wife had a very similar experience there. She was just kind of overtaken by a deep sense of awe and gratitude and connection there.
The second place.
Yeah, this is the second place. So that's called the Church of Our Lady in Bruges. So if anyone wants to look that up, it's Bruges, Bruges. And then the
Yeah, I
first
was going
church,
to add this.
yeah, the first church we're talking about is called the Church of the Holy Blood. And the second is called the Church of Our Lady. And there were lots more other, very beautiful artworks and, things to look at. We went to another church, which was pretty awesome.
Shereen had a moment in the Church of Our Lady where similar to what you had. Was she with you in the first church?
Yeah.
Did she have a similar experience that you were
No,
having?
no, it's interesting. She didn't have that experience there, but she had a similar experience somewhere else.
Wow. So
Yeah.
both of you was she sitting next to you when you sat down in that first church?
No, she in a very attuned way, realised that I was having, a moment, and
Really?
she left me to it. Yeah, she left me
Awesome.
to it.
So you walked in and she could tell something was coming over you, and she
Yeah,
just kind of left you to it and went back and waited. Wow,
yeah,
that's fascinating. So then, when you went to the second church, she had a similar kind of experience.
yeah. That's it, Pat. That's it. You got it. And then let me just tell you about the third church as well. Yeah. So we visited a place called the Jerusalem Chapel, which is a, a small private family chapel that it's a replica of a chapel in Jerusalem. Hence, it's called the Jerusalem Chapel. Now, that place was it was different, right? It's got kind of difficult to describe. Again, if anyone wants to Google the Jerusalem Chapel in Bruges, then you'll kind of see the layout. It was different, but they have a relic there, which is an incredibly ornate silver cross, and then set into the cross is this tiny piece of wood, which is supposed to be a piece of wood from the true cross, from the crucifix, from the cross that Jesus was crucified in. Right? So yeah, there's some amazing things to go and see over there. And like I say, I think any debate about whether those things are what they are supposed to be is, it doesn't matter too much. It's still an incredible place to just to go and see. And, it's really interesting because Bruges was the first stock exchange in the world, yeah, was not on Wall Street. I know that's difficult to imagine, right? But Gordon Gecko weren't there, right? It was in Bruges, you know. So it was this huge medieval trading centre where a lot
How
of
long ago? Oh, that back in the medieval time.
yeah, I couldn't give you the date. I'm not too good on that
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah, and you can see the building is still there, but because of where Belgium's sited, a lot of trade routes were able to converge on Bruges, and so it was this place. There was a lot of wealth there. It was a place of real wealth, um, and so this first stock exchange started there, called the Bourse after the family that started it, and then so there was a lot of money there. So there's a lot of big churches were built because, you know, obviously building big churches takes big money, and they had big money, right? So they built these churches, and there's this kind of like amazing history where like the reason it's so well preserved, so like 80% of the buildings within the central medieval bit, the old city, within the moat, 80% of those buildings there are like original buildings that date back to like the 15th or 16th century. Obviously, they've been renovated and stuff, but so yeah, it's just got this incredible atmosphere. Very beautiful, great food, amazing kind of spiritual connection and things to see and experience and stuff. So yeah, man, it's a special place, Pat. Special
Yeah.
place.
Well, it sounds fascinating. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing you were thinking. You know, the Shroud of Turin and relics. It's irrelevant. You know, whether that's real or not. You know what I mean? We're not looking for any. I know people get out and argue about these things that we don't need validation. When Jesus comes into your life, you feel it and you know. You just, you know, that's like, you know, in our first conversation, it's just like, you know, so you don't need any kind of, oh, that's kind of validation. But that is spooky what you're telling me about when you sat down there. You said that church was like 1150,
So it started. Let me just look again. So
like
there was
900. That church has
a
been there for like 900 years. The
yeah,
first one you sat down.
there was a chapel there about 900 years ago, and then they built the church over this chapel. Um, so what else is there to say about it? Basilica functions as a place of worship and a pilgrimage site. The relic is displayed on set days, and there's an annual procession, the procession of the Holy Blood. Yeah, it's a special place, man. A special place. In the 19th century, restoration and redecoration reinforced the basilica's present appearance. Yeah.
So do they still hold church? Do they still hold services in these?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so on the Sunday morning it was closed because they were having a service. So so it's still an active church as well.
So what is there a particular domination? What you know, would they be Church of England, Catholic? You know what I mean? What is there, you know, there's so many
I
dominant.
I believe it's Catholic. Yeah,
Right.
Roman Catholic. Yeah, I just looked it up. Just being transparent with the listeners. Yeah, Roman Catholic. Yeah, it's a very ornate. A lot of tradition. The things, everything that we see in Catholic churches. Yeah, very beautiful.
Sounds like it. I wonder, is Belgium a country that you know, like there was that we talked about the revival going on in the UK. Uh, what's kind of the atmosphere in Belgium, or did you even notice anything?
Honestly, couldn't say, man. Yeah, couldn't say.
You didn't really,
Yeah,
you didn't really know anything about what's going on there as far as the country, that type of thing. And you're talking about that being the stock market. I mean, not stocks, but that was kind of the economic center. I think in Brussels still, isn't that where the head? That's where UK. I mean, the EU,
the EU.
European.
Who's that? Who's
There's
that, man?
something that. What's
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I said, who's that? We left the EU. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that, yeah,
But what I mean is there was something like there was a center thing of
the
it was a center thing of
the
Europe.
Europe,
You
the
did
Europe.
so Britain did leave the EU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
We
you didn't
left.
need it. See? Yeah, you didn't need. Yeah,
Well,
you didn't need it.
that's debatable, but yeah, that's a long-running debate. But
Yeah.
yeah, the European Parliament, I think, is in Brussels. I think it's
Well,
like quite.
there's some head of government there. So the European Parliament, I don't know if that's the EU or whatever.
Yeah,
No,
that's the EU,
no.
man. Yeah. So, but like, I guess in summary, I would say, but Bruges, great churches, great opportunities to meet with Jesus for me anyway, me and my wife. Great food, man. Great French fries or frites. Great waffles. You know what I mean? Like the waffles, man, were like it was another planet. You know, it was another level of waffle
So
eating.
they really came from there.
They really came from there. And like there's
That's
like
awesome.
there's waffle places on every corner. And like
Right.
we went to three.
Not Waffle House. There's no Waffle House.
There was
There's,
no. Well, there's a place called the Waffle House, but bear in mind I've spent time in the South, so I know what Waffle House is. And yeah, there's no
it's not the
Texas
place where you're going to
cheese
get a good YouTube
sandwiches.
video of a brawl breaking out.
Yeah, no, it's not like that, man. It's not like the Waffle House. Although I have to say, I found the Waffle House to be an integral part of the cultural experience of visiting Mississippi. So
It is. It's good food. It's just when you hear the chair start getting moved out of the way or somebody screaming, you either get out of the place or pull your cell phone out and start, see if you can't get you a viral video when the hands start flying. So, so that's not happening in Belgium. Well, that sounds like a fascinating place. So what you're saying is it's a very spiritual place. You could feel God's presence in these places.
yes,
Fascinating.
yeah, that's the experience we had. Yeah, for sure, man.
And I wonder what that, like you said, when you started talking about when I sat down in the chair, what just dawned on me was all of the souls through all of the centuries that have worshiped in those churches, uh, where so much of Western civilization kind of grew up. So that, I don't know what it is, but I have a feeling that there's got to be something heavy in those places, and that's pretty fascinating. I appreciate you sharing the story with us there. I didn't realize that about Belgium. I just knew about the fries and where it was on the map. So
Yeah,
now you've educated me. Willie, do you have any other stories there, or are you?
that's it, man. That's all for that's all she wrote. Yeah,
That was about it. But both of you had a very spiritual experience, and
that's right.
and
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Well, man, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And you're in town this week, so we'll get back together shortly. And our next episode, if everyone would join us back, we are going to talk about anxiety, which is something that all of us deal with to a certain extent. So, Rich, glad to see you back. You got your glow back about you, and appreciate you sharing those stories there. And now I'm a little bit more sophisticated about Belgium.
Yes, you are. All right, Pat.
I
God
won't,
bless
I
everybody.
won't call it the channel again. All right. God bless everybody out there. We'll see y'all next time.
See you next
Take care.
time. Bye.